talk about the proposed Lower Road project. It's sponsored jointly, the meeting tonight, by the City of North Vancouver and by Port Metro Vancouver. And we have a fairly simple agenda tonight. Basically, we have a few introductory remarks, and then we're going to open up to question and answer and comments. You'll see that we do have 2 floor mics. We'll be taking the questions and getting answers, hopefully, from the people in the front. And Chris, that's my chair. You can have it. That's going to be mine, so just don't get parked there. We have, thank you. Fairly simple, as I said, a simple agenda. It's basically we want to take as much time as possible to get in the question and answer component. Just a couple of housekeeping things. If you do have cell phones and you do need to keep them on, please put them on vibrate. I know that sometimes it's so easy to forget. Emergency exit, if there was an incident of some kind that we needed to get out of here quickly, there's obviously, they're well marked. There's one there, and the emergency exit there. Also washrooms, if people need washrooms, they're down the hall just past where you came up, and men's and women's are both back there. In terms of the question and answer portion, I've had a number of people asking me how are we going to handle that. What we're going to do is I'm going to alternate taking a person from this mic and then that one. We're going to take 3 minutes per person. If you've got something that's long and you feel that you need to read it, I would appreciate if you would just pick out the key points that you'd like to make. If you feel that it's a piece that you would like me to include in the report that I'll be doing tonight, you're welcome to leave it with me or to send it by email, and we can get into that later. Just one other thing is we do have the question and answer portion, and is being recorded, and I will be reporting that out to both the port and to the city later. So to get us started, we have the mayor. So, Mayor, if you would come up, and you're welcome.
Just have to adjust this mic a bit here, downwards, right? So first of all, I'd like to say a big thank you and a welcome to all of you for coming out tonight. I see many faces here this evening that were at the previous open houses and were at the previous meetings. So I want to thank you again for coming out and giving us your input and for giving input and sharing your concerns. I do want to point out that we do have members of council here this evening. We have Councillor Clark and Councillor Keating, I can say there, and Councillor Haywood and Councillor Trentadue and Councillor Bookham. I see you right there. Thank you. So we got 6 of 7 members of council here tonight, so that's good to see. So thank you all again for coming out for the meeting and to hear the latest updates with regards to this low-level road project. For many of you, it is a very significant impact in your lives, for not just you, for people, I guess, outside and other surrounding areas. So I want to say I respect that. And it's important that we respect all people's points of view, because there are people here that have some very strong opinions one way or the other, and that's very good to have. But it's important that we respect other people's points of view as well. So I try to keep that in my mind as well when I listen to people, because I can sometimes get quite jaded myself. This process that we've been going through hasn't been a real typical process. I think it's been a process that if we could all had to do it over again, we would like to have more time. Unfortunately, we've been under the constraints of the federal government, who have said that this project has to be completed by March of 2014, which has necessitated this tight timeline. And an impact with that as well, the original deliverers of the project, TransLink, were taking this forward, and then they decided for whatever reason that they'd had it for a year and weren't going to carry it forward. So the port had to come in at a later time than they'd have wanted to, so they were a bit of a tight timeline as well. So I think we have to respect that timeline. If we could do it in a perfect world, we'd love to have lots more time to talk about more specific details, but unfortunately we can't, because we've been told very clearly by the federal government that March 2014 is the date that it has to be completed by. There's been many, many, many good questions asked of the people here tonight, I'm sure, and at the open houses and at previous meetings of the members of the Port Corporation, their consultants, and with city staff. And I want to acknowledge that. And there has been some changes made in regards to those, and I think we're going to hear some more further changes tonight about where the port is with regards to this road. And I think there's been some significant changes made as largely a result of the comments that I've heard from people like yourselves. Council has been very clear. We want to try to get as close as possible to a win-win situation. And what do I mean by that? I mean that We want to see if we can get some improvements to the road in terms of for the port and the access to the port and port industry, and also improvements for the city in terms of the bank stabilization and the Spirit Trail, but importantly improvements to the quality of life for people living in North Vancouver. And we all have heard loud and clear that noise is a big issue with regards to trains and the shunting of trains and that. And so we're hoping that we can get to a point where we can all get something out of this to the benefit of us, not to the benefit of some and the detriment to others. And hopefully we're going to get to that soon. And Council's been very committed to that. We have not made any decisions up to this point. We will have to make a decision shortly, sometime in June, but Council is really hoping that we get a win-win. There has been, as I mentioned, some significant benefits, and there's certainly some challenges for people living in the direct area, and I want to really acknowledge that. There are some people that are more affected than others, and I have to realize that, and we all do, that there is impacts. But as we're going to hear tonight, there has been some significant changes. So I'm going to pass it over to whoever's next, but just a couple things I want to say. Thank you very much for coming out, for being involved, and for giving your feedback. I know it has been a frustrating process. That was the last thing I wanted to mention, is that sometimes there's been some frustration in regards to information you've been getting. Well, it's a bit of a catch-22. In order for the port and the consultants and the city to give you the exact heights of road, for example, we heard loud and clear that the road was too high. In order to give you that information, the port has to spend about $5 million plus to get that. They want a commitment from the city that we're going to proceed if they're going to spend that money. So unfortunately, to get to those numbers exactly where we're the right of the road, we'd have to spend significant money. We don't want to commit until we've sort of heard. So it's been a really difficult process to get to this point. However, from what I understand with staff, and I've been pushing staff, I've been pushing the port to try to get to a point where the road height is lowered so significantly that it's out of the sights of the people, especially on the banks there, and that we can have some improvements to help stabilize the road, and there are some significant benefits to the city in terms of Spirit Trail and such. So we're going to hear about that tonight. And Council's listening. Council will be discussing this afterwards, and we really appreciate you being out here tonight. So I'm going to give it back to Ray, and thank you again for coming.
Thank you, Mayor Masato. Steve Ono, the city engineer, I think a number of you know Steve. Anyway, Steve has got a few comments, then we're going to hear from the port, and then we're going to get to you.
Thanks, Ray. Hi, all. Thanks for coming, everyone. Steve Ono here, your city engineer. And I, too, would like to say welcome. And there's a lot at stake here, right? We all know that. And that's why it's such a good thing that you're here, because we really do have to have a conversation. I know most of you have probably already seen a lot of information out there about all the projected benefits or potential benefits of this project. And, you may or may not agree with them. So I'm not going to stand up here and try and sell you on all the potential virtues of this project. And a lot of you have also told me, and actually Mayor Masato just acknowledged that a lot of you have told me that this roadway is really a potential intrusion into your lives. So things like exhaust and traffic noise, truck traffic, glare of headlights, dust, those kinds of things are real concerns to you. But really importantly, what an awful lot of you have also told me is you're not dead set against this project. You've told me if we get this thing right, if we get it to the point where it doesn't intrude on your lives unduly, then it's a go, because you can also see the broad benefits of this project. So that's what we've been working towards. Now, several of you have asked me what I'm thinking as your city engineer. So I'm the guy that's responsible for our public works and our infrastructure. So what am I thinking? What do I think about this project? And actually, I think some of you have even said that, gosh, Steve, you must work for the port because it looks like you're really pushing this project on us. And you know what? That's not what it's about. What I'll tell you is I'll tell you what I'm thinking. So here's why I find this project real hard to evaluate, because there are some real big potential benefits for the city. Okay? But there's also some real potential impacts. If we don't get this right, there's some real potential impacts right where some of you live. Right, with the biggest investment, your biggest personal investment, it's your homes. So I hear that, and all I can say is, as your city engineer, I'm going to do my best to try and protect that. But I also don't want to throw away the opportunity that's presented before us. So on the one hand, on my watch here as city engineer, here's this opportunity to fix a whole slew of problems that we've inherited from an 85-year-old road. You know, these benefits, they can benefit the city for several generations to come. And these benefits, they're benefits, the work that it's going to take to realize those benefits, I have to say this, we can't afford that as a little city of 45 or 47,000 people. We can't afford to do that on our own. Okay? So that's why I really think it's worth trying to get a little bit further in this project to try and get some of those answers that you're all seeking. I want to give you an example, because this is what's in my thought, right? And you've asked me what I'm thinking. Some of you have asked that. I'm not trying to be an alarmist here, but to manage risk, what the city does from time to time, long before I was a city engineer here, okay? So what the city's been doing is sending engineers out there to have a look at the roadway and the slope to try and make sure that chunks don't fall down and cause problems. And so far, that risk has been manageable. But from every so often in those winter days, those rainy winter days, you'll probably see me out there. A couple of you have seen me out there in the laneway or down below the slope looking up at it, looking at those trees overhanging the bank just to see if anything's changed. Because I'm responsible for that, right? I'm responsible for the consequence of that. So that's some of the benefits, I guess, that we would see, right? Less train noise, less emissions, slope stabilization, so on. But these are those impacts, right? So again, I say, I hear your concerns, and I'm trying to look out for your interests, and I have spent time working closely with my colleagues here at the Port Metro Vancouver to try and convey the level of gravity of those concerns. And what I can say is that I trust now that they've heard the message, and they really are working hard to get that road lower. Now, unfortunately, we haven't got all the detailed answers for you yet. But I know that they're committed and working hard to try and come up with those answers and those solutions that are going to satisfy most of you. And I'll be frank, I can't guarantee they're going to satisfy all of you 100%. Now, I do think that there's a solution that exists that's going to lower the road significantly in the area sort of between St. David's and Moody, somewhere in that area. I think there's going to be a solution there that can lower the road, ideally out of sight. Okay. I don't know yet what the exact impact is going to be on the project budget and whether or not the port's going to be able to afford that and the funding partners are going to be able to afford that. But that's what we're driving towards. Now, I've also said that there's other mitigation measures that we're going to try and do to try and get everything lower. But I've said to some people around the St. Patrick's area that I'm not quite as optimistic about being able to get the road down in that location. Okay. Because there's a real fixed constraint as far as the height above the railway lines that the road, the overpass has to be in order to clear the rail cars. But I know the port's looking seriously at an option around that, or a couple of options around that. And I think they may have a few words about some good news there. So here's the opportunity. We don't have all the answers yet. It's going to take a lot more work. Like Mayor Masato said, it's going to take millions of dollars more work.